On this episode of the AMP'D UP211 Podcast, we're diving into the incredible story of Eric LeMarque, a former pro hockey player, Olympian, and snowboarder whose life took a dramatic turn when a series of decisions left him stranded in the Sierra Nevada mountains for 8 days. Eric's journey of survival, overcoming addiction, and finding faith after the amputation of both of his legs is nothing short of inspiring. Eric's story is about resilience, transformation, and the power of second chances. Stay tuned for an unforgettable conversation. Eric LeMarque, good to see you today, sir. How are you?
Doing good. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. And I'm glad you were able to do this again because our first attempt did not come to fruition. We had some technical difficulties last time we tried to meet, and I appreciate your patience and sticking to it and being on the AMP'D UP211 podcast. The thing I want to do right away, just as a form of indulgence for myself, is I am very much a moviegoer, and I want to talk about the movie, about your life, about your struggle. Six Below is just an incredible odyssey into what you went through, which as famously you lost, both of your legs, trying to navigate an incredibly difficult experience in your life, remarkable stuff. And I guess my first curiosity goes to, how was it that your story was one that they picked up on, that someone picked up on and said, we've got to make this into a movie? How did that come about?
It came about, I had written a book titled Crystal Clear back in 2009. And the book was so well written. I had a professional writer who helped me write it, but had a lot of hands-on to the book as well. So I was contacted by an in-between producer who had read the book and said, this in itself could be, a screenplay. And is it okay on your behalf if I submit it to some producers who are looking to do these redemptive type stories from, pushing the envelope and right on through into four walls in a hospital room and a flat sheet where my Olympic feet used to tent up. It was raw. It had, elements that were real and relatable to people. And that one submission turned into the movie Six Below, Miracle on the Mountain, starring Josh Hartnett.
Yeah, it was obviously for myself as an amputee, it really resonated, with me because I'm part of the same community as yourself. But I would also recommend the movie in terms of this incredible just struggle that you went through, and seeing this huge connection between yourself and nature, and obviously the themes with your mother and what you were going through in terms of addiction, and then somewhat that struggle being a cleansing for you. There's so many layers to the film in terms of not only is it, yes, this survival story, this grit kind of oriented theme of, pushing through these barriers to survive, all of that. But it also goes much deeper because there's other themes at play in terms of addiction and loss and redemption and all of these other things that will resonate with people who haven't lost a limb but are just struggling in life. Obviously it was very, very well acted, very portrayed beautifully. And it's always amazing to me how situations like that, where I marvel at the landscape because it's shot in such an incredible way. And with you snowboarding and these beautiful landscapes, and this sort of pivots to, oh no, like this is a horrible set of circumstances. And I mean, in terms of, and it's no big secret that, Hollywood tends to massage things to a certain degree. Especially with, biographical stuff. If you were to say, because obviously it's about you, how much of the film would you say percentage wise is accurate? Let's say compared to some embellishments or some storytelling.
I would say about 25%.
Okay.
I really wish that, like I had shared earlier on, that the screenplay was already written with the book. And so, it's interesting to see your life, and I'm very proud of the work. Please don't get me wrong by saying 25%, or comparing the book Crystal Clear to what the actual screenplay was written as. And I'm sure it's done for a number of facets and a number of reasons, but it was interesting. And I remember the first time I saw it, I was at the director's bay, and they were still editing the film, and they finally let me see it. And it was quite emotional. Even if it was just 25% of the actual events that had occurred.
Yeah, and that's, believe it or not, that's kind of what I would, I guess, forecast or predict, because again, for many different reasons, and we don't have to get into why movies are made and how they need to be marketed and all those things. There has to be a mass appeal and all that stuff, because it's about making money. We know that. At the same time, my assumption was, well, I'm sure there's some core things that very much are based in fact, but then there's storytelling involved. So for someone, let's say, that has only seen the movie, what would be something you would want to tell them that is divergent of that, to say, well, here's some other things that I think are important in terms of my story, more based in my personal experience, let's say the real facts of what happened to me on the mountain. What would be something you would want to say to someone?
I would have to say that it would be the bigger mountains that I faced in the years to come. Number one, I had made horrible decisions and decided to quit my professional hockey career and become a professional snowboarder, who ended up breaking bad and becoming essentially an 8-month addict, where I was snorting crystal meth up my nose, I was smoking marijuana, I was drinking alcohol, and that was my recipe. And at the same time, the athlete that was always in me was still working out, playing hockey, snowboarding, and I was aspiring to reach the X Games in border cross. But really, who was I kidding? Because I was no more different than the most ravaged speed freak you'd see, tweaking, obsessing over every minuscule detail. And so, number one big mountain was learning to forgive myself. And that took years. The mountain and the 8 days and the 10 miles that I traversed, and facing wild animals, and the beauty, as you had mentioned before, can suddenly turn into a snowboarding trip gone horribly wrong, and and then you're beholden to Mother Nature at her worst and at her best. And so that was one of the mountains. The other mountain was, I had to learn how to redefine myself. I had always done sports. I had always, that was essentially my means to an end. And I was a professional hockey player. That's all I'd ever done. I had transferred over into working for Easton Sports. And then I was teaching hockey, so I had to learn to reinvent myself, and that was very humbling at 40 years old, taking an entry level job in a software company. Another big facet, another big reality was I had to learn to put the little boy to bed, and the man in me rose up and started to ask for help. And that was utilizing amputee groups, utilizing mental health groups, utilizing all the different competitive advantages that I learned as a professional athlete. I had to do in my real life and accept and go through all those stages of loss and change and use every resource that was available to me.
Wow. Yeah, man, what an awesome answer. And that is a lot to unpack. I mean, there's a lot there. And I appreciate you giving me so much to sort of take a look at and peel back the layers on. You know, do you feel like, those 8 days, had you not been in the condition that you were in, outside of the drug use, but just, physically, your fitness level, and that you could literally snowboard down a mountain? Because I think to myself, even just watching the movie, I think, like, your average Joe, like, you're not going to make it through that. Like, that is against some pretty steep odds. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Oh, I would. And, thankfully, as I shared, I was in, elite shape. My diet was horrible because I would crave sugar,
Yeah.
coming down from crystal meth, and just the way I was living my life was, just polluted and throughout. And so I just can thank God, the universe, something bigger than my 6 foot view, that at least I had the DNA makeup of an
Yeah.
athlete. And, I it's incredible because when you're pushed to the limits, my will to live was much more powerful than the addictive, destructive decisions and behaviors that I had as an addict.
Yeah.
So that allowed me to stay in shape. It allowed me to still be true to the person that I was meant to be, because I need that addiction as an athlete. I'm an adrenaline junkie, and because of that, I was in such physical fit shape that I was able to, sustain losing 46 pounds, traveling, 10 miles. Each day was sub freezing. So, and then every single hard assed individual that I had come across in going to the National Hockey League and going to the Olympics and going to the World Championships, they demanded a lot from me. And in turn, I demanded a lot from myself. And it was never a decision on the mountain that it was okay that I give up. No matter what, whether I had to crawl inch by inch or moment by moment, I was going to survive because I had put myself into that situation and it was my responsibility to get out. So I never thought that, oh gosh, you're never going to make it. It wasn't until the 8th day that I'll share with you later on in the conversation that I started to fall asleep, and I started to get worried at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I appreciate you giving such a robust response to that. As far as the drug abuse, this was something that, do you think the drug abuse played a role in pulling you away from hockey and transitioning to snowboarding? Or was that something that you sort of, dabbled in at one point and it just accelerated? I mean, what was the
It
evolution behind those addictions?
Well, having played hockey, I had a few dollars in my pocket. And it's very easy to make friends when you start to, hang out with the wrong type of crowd. And, I found myself starting to miss hockey. And because I had yet evolved into the professional snowboarder that I wanted to be. And so alcohol was a gateway to marijuana, to cocaine, and eventually meth, and eventually that 8-month addiction. So, um, Yeah, it can happen to anybody so fast once we miss an element of something that gave us, our livelihood and our core base of who we were.
Yeah, I think supplementing, filling those holes. I've spoken to plenty of people that have struggled through addiction, and being able to trace it back to something, whether that is dealing with pain, trying to you know bring some form of energy back into their lives. And I'm always astounded as well as how often people can be functioning during those periods. You could be pursuing a snowboarding career while managing an addiction. And I know specifically, even now, people that are struggling with some form of substance abuse, but they just go about their day. Somehow they sort of weave it into their life and their lifestyle. And most people around them, coworkers, loved ones, may not even realize what's happening because they do such a great job of sort of keeping it under wraps, so to speak. Uh, and I think it is, and to echo what you were saying about, becoming becoming a man, letting go of the little boy in you, and being able to reach out for help, being able to recognize that things needed to change, and that was, part of your evolution as a person. We all decide at some point when it's time to be the adult in the room, and that can be, you know, that can come from a catalyst of many forms. We can all have those moments where we say, okay, this is my time. This is my time to step up. This is my time to grow up. And I appreciate your strength in that, because very often people will make the mistake of thinking that that's some strange form of weakness, which it's not. It's nothing but strength to be fully realized.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Meekness is not weakness. I'm sure you've heard strength that's,
Yep.
under control and channeled. It's like, I think I heard the example of taking a horse and breaking it. It's still the same horse, but now you've got that strength, which is under control. So that's a big part of maturity, and it's a big part of being an amputee, because we have to get over ourselves and our own vanity. I remember when we would go and travel around and go to different hotels, and my son is like, Dad, you promised you would get in the pool. And I was worried about this so-called all-American professional athlete, you know, and now I've got real scars where I could really connect with individuals. But it took my son who said, Dad, you promised this time that you were coming in the pool. And I was so insecure, and I had so much vanity about what people would think about me when I showed my limbs, that I finally just like punched myself in the face, and I said, Eric, how dare you, as a father, steal your son's childhood?
Mm.
And you're going to allow him, he wants to swim with his dad. And so I got over myself. And from that day, it took a 6-year-old to get me off of my high horse and get over myself. And then, as you know, Rick, and so does the community, people come up and they admire you. And I'm proud of me now. I'm proud. It took me years. And for the people who are listening that may be new amputees, that's okay. You're going to get there, and you'll become a person that's stronger than the one that you were before. And so I just hope that, this podcast can be an encouragement to so many in so many different ways today.
No, I appreciate you saying that, because that's really what we're trying to do. It's a destigmatizing, it's a normalization, but it's also a way to say we're all part of this circumstance, and the more we communicate, the more we come together as a community. And this is a really strange time, especially in the United States with all this division going on. We can find common ground in things. We can find connection points. And I am, even to this day, although I'm almost 7 years into this journey as an amputee, honestly, Eric, I still will pause at times when I feel, how can I say, exposed or vulnerable
Hmm.
in a situation. And it's becoming less and less for me, but I still have those moments where, I'm in shorts that day, and I park my car and a family's walking by, and I pause and I say to myself, I'm going to wait until they pass before I get out of the car, because I don't want to be noticed, or I don't want to be considered a spectacle or something to whisper about, or I just want to go about my day in a very unassuming way. And I have to check myself, similar to what you're saying. Like, why am I doing that? What's that all about? Like, who, you know, and maybe even remind myself in sort of a tough love kind of way. Hey, Rick, you're not that important. Like, it's not that
Yeah.
it's not that big of a deal. Just live your life. Stop it. You know? And there's so many feelings that are associated with what we go through, and having those community groups and pressing into that, I think, is really important, because the more we can have an exchange of ideas, the more we can sort of allow ourselves to be open and vulnerable at times, the better we can process and get on with life, get on with swimming with our son, get on with the good stuff, the things that really matter. And, I have a granddaughter now, and I mean, you would think I walk on water, because for her, everyone we come in contact with, she needs to educate them on grandpa's robot leg. I mean, we walk up to total strangers and she's like, excuse me. This is my grandpa, and that's a robot leg. I just need you to know that. And for me, it's, Emma, stop. Like, why are you doing that? But for her, this is actually something she's very, very proud of. She's very taken with it. She's very fascinated with it. She sees it as unique and special, more so than just being that I'm her grandfather. And I have to let my guard down and say, okay, let's go down that path together. Let's allow that to be something that we connect on, because it's important to her, and I need to get over myself. The thing I wanted to ask you too is, being a double amputee and staying as active as you are, what challenges have you faced as far as the prosthetic piece, your prosthesis? What was your recovery like? How did you assimilate, acclimate, to being active? And, what challenges did you face along the way?
Sure. Um, so, because I've had athletic prowess, I've been very blessed and fortunate that once I put the prostheses on, both of them, I was able to walk. And it just felt like I was a little bit on stilts. I also, though, started to, at the time of the accident, or not accident, I like to say at the time of the survival, and I was going through all of this, just because um, I lost my legs didn't mean that the attic in me was cut. and now I had access to all this prescription meds. So I kind of drowned myself for the first year or so in medication, which was not a smart thing to do. I wish that I would have asked for an ordeal surgery where they fuse the two bones together
Mm.
and it creates a pad that's much stronger. But I had to press in and find out what was out there and what was available. And being lucky and fortunate to get up and move, once I started to realize, oh wow, I'm gonna have a normal life. I'm gonna be able to snowboard. And year to the date, I wanted to prove it to myself, so I snowboarded down Mammoth from top to bottom, and just made the adjustments and just found the feel. But it took a lot of things. I was kicking and screaming going to my first amputee meeting, but then at that first meeting I realized that a small piece of plastic food wrap can help minimize skin breakdown and actually heal even a weight bearing area with some neosporin. So all of these resources and tools helped me to get to a place of recovery, and it doesn't happen overnight. And one of the things that I've learned is patience. And it's when it was a forced patience. And because it was forced, I started to embrace it and say, it's okay if I don't have all the answers today or tomorrow or the next day or in a week or in a month or in a year, but eventually it's coming. And when it does come, it's so much more rewarding. And so it'll happen. It'll happen for everybody. What's important is that, we stay physically fit. Right away, in speaking to some people, they said, at first, because I'm a BK, so below the knee, on both, and I still have 6 inches of my calf. But, at the time, they were worried about the socket being too heavy. But now with the Harmony system, it adapts and it feels like it's attached to me when it's functioning correctly. So you just have to, it could be frustrating sometimes when things don't work right with the prostheses, or if you have some pistoning that's happening because you've got maybe a small hole in the outside sleeve, and you need to put, a gaiter. What I started doing was I started cutting pieces of my old sleeves and pieces of my old liners and putting them over the edge just to seal that space so that I can get the maximum amount of suction. So, you have to be willing to try, and yet at the same time not get frustrated, because there's nothing more frustrating, and every amputee out there that's listening to this or watching this could agree, when the equipment's not functioning as it's meant to function. And so it's just a matter of molding and shaping it, and trying different things that are outside the box. And I've seen many amputees who have gone on to create their own businesses and create certain prostheses that have changed, that are game changing the world. And the Harmony system is one of them. The Alpine foot is one of them. That's one of the things I'm hoping to get. So even though I have my knees, it's in a rigid cast. I really don't have as much knee bend as I wish I could. That will be a game changer once I do, obtain that Alpine foot. So, it's there. You have two ways to look at things all the time, and it's such an old adage, the glass is half full, half empty type thing, and you just have to keep failing forward. That's my best advice, and
That's
that's
great.
what helped me. And that's hockey. Hockey's a series of failures until you finally get a shot on goal, let alone put the puck in the back of the net. So, yeah, I appreciate just the opportunities and the resources that are available, and in talking in community. We can help each other and pass. I told my friend Tommy, who was part of the reason why, I'm on your show today, that, hey, you can take a small square of food wrap and put it over a weight bearing area that may be, having some skin breakdown with some neosporin, and, you'll see it heal in a couple days. So shout out to Tommy, and
Yeah, shout out to Tom
it's a pleasure.
Carlson. He's a good man. He's a good man. He's a good man. And it's funny you say that because I have done exactly what you're describing when you said I've taken old liners and cut out like
Yeah,
little custom inserts where
exactly.
if I felt pistoning or I felt margin and I thought, okay, I can tell that I have a good fit on about 90%, let's say, of my limb, but there's this one area today that is just I can tell I'm like rattling around. And ply socks are not going to solve that because a ply sock is an overall increase. It's a 100% coverage of increased limb size. A ply sock does not necessarily micromanage where that margin is occurring. It just basically blows you up a little bit bigger. So it might solve that margin in one area of your limb, but it's also creating all kinds of brand new pressure on other areas that might be form fitting. And I've had to do exactly what you mentioned, which is okay, I think I need like a little disc over here and put that in, you know, re-step, refit, go back, walk around. Okay, now I'm getting the kind of rigid feel without creating too much pressure, the kind of rigid feel I need to do what I'm trying to do today. So if I'm on a hike, because when I'm working, I tend to appreciate a little more of a comfort feel, let's say, not necessarily loose, but I don't need to be super binding, super tight. Whereas when I do something more active, oh man, I need that. I need my socket to feel like there is absolutely no margin. Like I am.
Yeah.
It is part of me. It is an extension of me, and I can't have any kind of pistoning, any kind of loose feel. No, it's got to be like, okay, this thing is on like cement, and that's the only way that I can do more active things. The thing I want to circle back to that you mentioned at the beginning of that response is going back to Mammoth. Um, my gosh, what was that like? Going back and
I think.
that's
Sorry, Rick. Go ahead.
that's incredible. I mean, I'm trying to think to myself, could I do that? Could I go back to that place that I spent 8 days fighting for my life?
Yeah, I didn't. Fortunately, I didn't have those thoughts coming through my head. I guess it was just the stubbornness and the tenacity I had as an athlete that I just needed to prove it to myself that I could do it. And whether that was right or wrong, it's different for all of us.
Hmm.
And at the time, it was what I needed. And it's just helpful. One of the things I wanted to say about also what you were talking about your limb and having it piston is, I've learned to keep my muscle, any muscle that you have, so that you can actually fire those muscles in the prostheses. At the time they wanted it to just be conical and actually, just atrophied. And somebody said to me, no, 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 you want to have that extra muscle so that you can fire it. And so, again, just having, those resources and listening to things, but that's, an announcement to make to the amputee world is, whether they want to or not. I'm not so sure because it's been 20 years, 19 years that I've had prostheses now. And so, it's now becoming kind of normal when you start to have dreams of able-bodied dreams and then adaptive dreams, as I like to call it. I don't like some of the words that people describe, whether it's disabled or handicapped. So, but yeah, I just once I was able to accomplish, going to the top of Mammoth and kind of, yeah, when I got up top, I took a few deep breaths and reminisced and glanced over to the area that where I got trapped
Yeah.
and inevitably tried to free myself and went out of bounds and almost off a cliff and 10 miles deeper into Mother Nature. um, it was, just the mass of how big the Sierra Nevada mountain range was kind of a little bit overwhelming, but I didn't stay there, and I've learned to master, as we all do. I shifted my focus and looked at the task of getting down now.
How do you how do you feel that your faith played a role in your recovery and everything, up until this point?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of easy for me because I was at my low bottom when I shared that I, was in four walls in a hospital room. In fact, the addict was still in me as I shared, and I had broken into my morphine machine and upped my dosage, and they caught me and
Mm.
they took the machine away from me. And I took my plate of food and I threw it at them across the room. Well, they let me sit there for 3 days in my mess and at my low point. And finally, it was about a day or so later, I started to scream at the walls and demand, like, hey, if God, if Jesus, if whoever is real, I dare you to, you know, I won't even repeat what I was saying, but I was swearing up and down and saying, if you're real, I dare you, bleep, 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 bleep. And so, my heart was kind of open and I was at a place where, I'm like, I dare you to show up. And sure enough, Christ came into my life and lifted me up. And ever since then, it's proven itself real. And that's what's important. Whatever it is that you believe in, whatever you find that speaks back to you and that you can have a relationship, it's going to be beneficial, and it's a solid foundation because if we take the 500, 5,000, 50,000 smartest people in the world that have coursed over this planet that we live on, they still know about 50% of everything. So I'm not going to bank on a 6 foot view or bank on man. So it's nice. It gave me a very airy and light feeling. It's also nice to believe in something bigger than than ourselves.
Yeah. No, it's a beautiful
And
response.
so that, yeah, and then it played. It's like anything else. Unless you have a relationship and you give to that relationship, will you have a benefit? Now, it may be your granddaughter, it may be my son, it may be our spouses or whoever, even in relationships, business relationships, when you press in, and the scripture says when you press into God, he'll press back into you and you'll draw closer to him and he'll draw close to you. And it's the same thing, in a relationship with friends. You just feel that bond growing stronger and stronger the more that we press into each other.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I tend to go to this place of, we all have this certain amount of energy that we project into the world. And, it can be very, very positive. It can be full of light. And unfortunately, at times it can be not so pleasant. And when we can share that, that energy, that light, I really feel like human connection is one of the most powerful things, that we're gifted with while we're here in this space. That we become so much stronger when we combine our energy, and I think that goes back to what you mentioned about community groups and people allowing themselves to be open to that and sharing that with others, especially people that have gone through and are going through, something, especially for amputees. And I tend to believe that large in part social media has helped a lot of us. I know that there is a lot of tricky landscape in the social media sort of ethos and I've had to take a look at that also, because so often I talk to amputees that struggle in those spaces, because the thing that I've had to explore, especially with the podcast and in talking to so many different amputees from various walks of life, is this idea of toxic positivity and this sort of expectation that every amputee has to be an inspiring story, has to be an inspiration for others, has to uh, be the fittest and the fastest. And, you know, then we start getting into all the folds of, ableism. And these are all very, very sort of complex, sort of emotional sets. And I think that we have to be patient in those conversations. I certainly believe we have to validate when people are feeling that pressure that makes it turn into a toxic situation. But I do believe that we have to keep talking, and we have to keep trying to understand that everyone's path, everyone's journey is a little bit different. And I think you would probably agree, coming from sports especially, there are small victories. There are the little things. I was talking to someone the other day and I said, well, what's your next what's your next big milestone? What's your next goal? And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, is there something that you're trying to do? And they were in a dark place. And they said, well, I feel silly telling you that. I said, you know what? Set that aside for just a moment. Tell me what it is. As silly as it might seem to you. They said, well, you know what? I'd really like to be able to go out and get my mail. I'd really like to be able to walk outside, go to my mailbox, and walk back. I said, that's an incredibly, incredibly beautiful thing for you to aspire to do. Let's figure out how you can do that. What's it going to take for you to wear your prosthesis, for you to walk to the mailbox, and for you to come back into your house with your mail? And all of those feelings of inadequacy and, not being validated and feeling like positivity was a toxic thing for them went away in that moment. What's wrong with a small goal? We can get behind that. I mean, I want to know when you do that, because I'm going to be the one that's going to say, that is incredible. Way to go. You did it. You did it. And then what I find in those situations, because I've gone through this myself, it becomes, okay, what's next? What's the next thing? What's the next thing I can do? And for someone like yourself saying, okay, losing my legs below the knee, given that I did come from a very athletic space, very highly conditioned, an elite athlete, an Olympic athlete. I got fitted for prostheses and I walked. So many of us out there in the community would almost be, hate to say it, almost like turned off by that, because they've spent the last 3 years in, some crappy prep that wasn't fitted correctly, or their fitness level just isn't to a point yet where they can bear weight in a prosthesis. They're still struggling with, massive fluid shift, and they haven't really figured out that calculus yet. And there are, we can just keep going and going and going as far as the roadblocks that amputees face in that, that new baby bird amputee situation. And I tell anyone, it always starts with that one little goal, that one little thing that you want to do, even if that means getting out of a chair and walking across the room. I don't care how small it is. That is an accomplishment. And I mean, I'd be interested to hear your perspective on that, not just the social media piece and sort of the chatter that I see going on out there, but also what you would suggest to someone who feels stuck.
Yeah, I mean, there's never a goal that's too small. Maybe because I was, fortunate to have had the prowess of that I was blessed with and that I was given, and also that my family helped me obtain and achieve high level of education as well as my goals. Um, if we continue to fail forward, I would have to say, no matter what our physical capabilities are, our stronger capabilities are what live in here and what live in here. And in your soul and your spirit and in your heart and your mind, you're going to find the power to take that incremental first step and turn it into 10 incremental steps. And give yourself the credit that the credit is due, because not everybody can transfer. I know that. Not everybody can stand up the first time. I know that. But when you keep failing forward and you never quit, I know that you will always, always, always win.
Very, very wise words. I wanted to talk to you a little bit before we let you go about sport and the importance of sport. You come from, hockey, you come from snowboarding, you come from an active lifestyle. I know you mentor kids. What's the message you'd want to put out there as far as, I always felt like sports were so critically important, in my development as a young person, understanding not only how to reach your personal best, but also how to be part of a team and how to rely on others, for your success. And when given a chance to excel, to pursue excellence. And, I always think about things my father would say, and he'd say things like, it's not worth doing unless you want to be great at it. It's not worth doing unless you want to be excellent. You want to pursue excellence. Try things, experiment. But when you find something that you enjoy, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be really, really good at it. Pursue those things. And I felt like sport was one of those early gateways into seeing how I could push myself mentally, physically, all of those things. I mean, what's your perspective on that, especially given your history?
Well, sport can be, an adage for life, and it could be the challenges that we face on a daily basis. I mean, I wouldn't be human if to not say that there's times I don't feel like putting this stuff on and I feel like throwing it through a window. And I've done that. And I had to go through all of those stages. And athletics helped me along that path. But life, and like I said, who you are in here, in your spirit and soul, and who you can find you can become. Because we're all going to face challenges, we're all going to face health issues. And when we learn to find those small stages and steps, it's the sport aspect was those little incremental steps where you take a puck or a ball and you start to move it incrementally up the floor, and it could be the same thing in life and the same thing in any kind of challenge that we have. And so I'm very grateful to have had the support that I had to be able to, push and have people lift me up in failures. And, life is about relationships, because whether it was good, bad, indifferent, or a crime, not one of us would be here without two people coming together. And so utilize what you have, ask for help. That it's a powerful tool when you ask for help. I mean, I remember being in a wheelchair and, having to try to transfer up into an SUV from the wheelchair. And I would have to ask my friends, hey, this is what I need you to do for me. I need you to be there and stabilize the chair when I go up. And I've also been on the other side of that coin where, they think that they know best what's best for us and how they're going to help us. And they're not there for us, or they give us like a poor Johnny. And I remember one of my friends did that to me, giving me kind of like a poor Johnny on top of the head, patting my head. And I jumped up on my knees in my wheelchair and I said, don't ever do that again to me. I said, don't you feel sorry for me? And I think that sports, in losing a lot, in being defeated a lot, that there's a great strength that we can build up, and almost like an impenetrable shield that we can put around our lives and say, no matter what, I'm going to keep rolling forward. I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm going to keep failing forward. As I said, I'm sorry if the audience is getting tired of that term, but there's no other way. Because if we lay stagnant, if we lay defeated, then something else is going to compound, and that's just going to continue to grow. So whether you grow in a negative way or in a positive way or in an upward direction, and now that doesn't mean that you may take a tick up and two ticks back, but expect it. And recognize, and that's what sports given me the ability to do that. But I think we all have sport, because life could be a sport. We've all taken ticks up. We've had great days that where we feel like we're on top of the world, and then we've had these defeatist days where we feel that we're useless, we're worthless, we're a spectacle. We get into our own head and start ping-ponging these ugly feelings and thoughts. And so as quickly as those thoughts come in, we have the ability to quickly let them go. And I think, words have power, and out of your heart the mouth speaks, but our self-talk is critical. I try to, let's throw athletics aside here for a second. When I have my best days, I wake up, number one, in gratitude, in prayer. I then meditate and check out into a nothing space so that I'm ready for whatever life throws at me that day, or however I may be feeling that day. Then I listen to usually some affirmation music, some positive music, some worship music, and then I start to do my yoga routine straight in my bed without my prostheses. I throw on Cassandra 10-minute yoga that just wakes up your body and gets you going, and now I'm ready to take on whatever it is. I think so many of us, we get up and we jump onto our phones, or we jump onto our email, and we jump onto this and that. How do we stand a chance if we don't do that? Now, I don't do that every day. I wish I can sit here and tell you, yes, I do. I'm that disciplined, but I'm not. Sometimes I'm extremely lazy, and that's okay too. So long as we learn to take a break from ourselves and give ourselves a break and say, it's okay. There's tomorrow. There's the next minute. There's the next hour, whatever it may be. So that would be, in length, the answer.
It's a great answer, and it's it's a great answer, and it's very wise. And I so appreciate your transparency, and it's all very, powerful kind of stuff. I mean, your life is a testament to resilience and strength, and, everything that you've gone through is just extraordinary. And we can all learn so much from, Eric and, his many, many endeavors as a human. I want you to plug the book so we know where to get it.
Sure. So the book Crystal Clear you can get on Amazon. You can also get Six Below the book on Amazon as well. However, they took the author and myself's writing, the raw writing that we submitted to the first publisher, and they didn't vet through it. So I would recommend getting Crystal Clear as opposed to getting Six Below, because it has like 25 grammatical mistakes in it. But yet, if you're an educator or you want your kids to point out, it's a great read for kids how quickly life can change and change forever by going down the wrong path in life. And it's always the same result with drugs and alcohol is, you find yourself at the end of yourself very quickly and hopefully not dead. But you can get that also on Amazon and some of the streaming channels. There's the movie Six Below, Miracle on the Mountain. Again, it stars Josh Hartnett and it's something I'm proud of because it's interesting, and it was a wave of emotions just to see your life story kind of play out on film. But so I'm just looking forward to today. I'm looking forward to the next phase of my life, which is, and I look forward to continuously setting goals for myself. One goal that I have set is, whether it's in 2026 or whether it's in 2030, I hope to be able to compete in the Paralympics in border cross and make that initial goal a reality.
Oh, that's fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah, we'll be looking out for that. For people that want to follow Eric LeMarque, please do so. Check out his book. Check out the movie. I had mentioned to you, I cried like a baby. I mean, when you were in those last moments, waiting to be rescued and literally clawing your way up a mountain and just fighting for your life. We've all, anyone that's experienced trauma, especially people in the amputee community, know that feeling of, how do I find the strength, to survive? And that was very powerful stuff for me. So I feel very fortunate to have met you, to know you, to consider you a friend, and for you to be able to share all of your wisdom and all of your experience with the audience today. Eric LeMarque, thank you so much. My name is Rick Bontkowski. This is the AMP'D UP211 Podcast, and I want to wish everyone health and happiness, and we will see you next time. Thanks.